So we might want to look at that song a little bit as we go into meditation. In unity, we don't teach that God is outside of ourselves. We teach that God is within. And so when we talk about God is watching us, if we're truthful, if we're paying attention, we are in contact with that higher consciousness of us, that God consciousness or divine consciousness. And if we're paying attention, that observing consciousness alerts us to when we are leaving that centered place within us, when we go off course a bit into fear or jealousy or regrets. So in that way, God is watching us, that divine observing consciousness that is within each of us. That's part of the reason we meditate, part of the reason we ponder our insights, we open to this inner work, so we can pay attention, stay alert. The Buddhists say, wake up, stay present, pay attention, and release the outcome. So as we take a deep breath into this idea that this observing divine consciousness is within each one of us all the time, we're simply invited to listen to it. I want to read the scripture to you from Isaiah that's at the beginning of our book, Divine Audacity. From Isaiah, arise and shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. For darkness shall cover the earth, even thick darkness. But the Lord will arise upon you, and the glory will appear over you. So we consider this idea that the Lord is this divine consciousness, that it rises within us, it shines upon us, and it becomes the consciousness through which we express in the world, and that's our practice. And it is a truly audacious thing to consider that we are divine and that we are the light of the world. So I ask you to take a few deep breaths. And as we move into a few moments of silence, I just invite each one of us to consider this divine idea, this audacious idea that we are the light of the world. Even being open to consider that it might be true takes us into this divine consciousness. I invite you to consider in the next few minutes your own divinity, your own light, that the light of this consciousness has risen within you and is shining upon you. take a few more deep breaths. We allow ourselves to ponder this sentence. When I know that I am the light of the world, I fill in the blank. When I know that I am the light of the world, So as we take a few more deep breaths and we bring the lights up, I invite a few of you to finish that sentence and fill in the blank. When I know that I'm the light of the world, I shine like a lighthouse in the storm. When I know I'm the light of the world, I embrace others. When I know I'm the light of the world, I radiate peace. When I know I'm the light of the world, I
live in joy and happiness and I spread it to all.
I live in joy and happiness and I spread it to all. When I know I'm the light of the world, I do all those things more easily. No, I got to pay the light bill. I'll see you in a second and be the light of the world. No, there's this one other book I'm going to read about the light, and then I'll be the light of the world. Like Brittany told us this morning in our new Sunday morning circle, starting our book, Divine Audacity, Brittany said in a beautiful way that, I'm the presence of love. When we know we're the light of the world, we are the presence of love. So that's what we're talking about this morning. And Divine Audacity is the book that this series is coming out of. How many of you have done this book, Divine Audacity? Linda Martello Whitsitt. So we want to start off right off with telling you that this book is a fun way to study the 12 powers that Charles Fillmore talks so much about, the 12 capacities or the 12 innate aspects of who we are in our spiritual consciousness. And there are other words we could use. In my Pentecostal days, we studied the 9 gifts of the Holy Spirit. Well, Fillmore came up with 12 powers, similar ideas, innate capacities. We don't have to go anywhere else to access them. They're within us. So, what is divine audacity? Without looking at the screen. What is divine audacity?
Me.
What? Me. Oh, I love that. It's Kate. Finally. Divine audacity. Bold spiritual living and knowing that we are the I am presence, that we are a part of divinity, we are divine. And she absolutely has so many affirmations in this book. You can just open the book and come up with a spiritual affirmation for yourself for today. I boldly express the highest spiritual principles in the middle of everyday situations. How many of you have practice to do on that? I boldly express the highest spiritual principles that I can find to express in every day, in the middle of everyday situations. We have work to do. Okay. In divine audacity, we are fearlessly self-reflective and self-corrective. We could just spend the whole month on that. Fearlessly self-reflective and self-corrective. I've had a recent experience with that, having to be really fearlessly truthful about what my reaction was to a hard situation. I see goodness with myself and others. If you ever want to know what your spiritual work is, just there it is, on the screen today. I hold myself accountable for thoughts, words, and actions. These are just a few of the ideas in this book about what does it look like to live out of our divine audacity. But the first audacious thing she invites us to do is even consider that it's true that we're the light. That just takes audaciousness right there. To consider, I am the light of the world. You know, we can boldly state it. I am the light of the world, but in the alone moments, when you know who you really are, to be able to say, well, I am the light of the world. Divinely audacious. So it's living with the intention to do and say that which harmonizes, strengthens, uplifts. It's daring to be the light of the world. So I have been a part of spiritual groups where there was an emphasis on sin. And we're not going to do that here.
Amen.
Thank you. You know, in unity, sin means missing the mark. Literally, it's an archery term, missing the target. So haven't we all missed the target? Haven't we all missed the target a few times already today? You know, the target being to be the light of the world in everyday moments. And so we miss the mark, and so we simply begin again. You know, we begin again. We practice. So we go toward the light. I just had to throw that in there. We go toward the light. So the light, defined by Charles Fillmore, is the understanding principle in the mind. It's the, you know, we even have the idea, you know, the light bulb came on. It's the principle of understanding. How many of us have done forgiveness work? Oh, everybody's hand needs to go up. If you haven't begun yet, you need to think about that. So, in doing forgiveness work, what precedes forgiveness is often simply understanding and opening ourselves up to understanding ourselves and understanding other people. And then we move into forgiveness. There can be a divine and sacred moment where without doing any work, we simply move into a place of love and forgiveness. Usually it comes with understanding. Oh, I get it. They didn't know what they were doing. I'll forgive them because they know not what they do. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know they were being hurtful. They didn't know they were being unkind. Okay, I get it. So usually we move into forgiveness by moving through understanding. So light is a symbol of wisdom. When Jesus said, I am the light of the world, he meant that he was expressing the truth in all of its aspects, bringing understanding, the light of understanding, to everyday situations around him. Every story we have about this man, Jesus, is about shedding light on everyday situations. He never said, go to an ashram, live there for your entire life in silence, read all the Holy Scriptures, and then you'll be the light of the world. So no, you can be the light of the world by simply helping somebody on the side of the road who needs help. You can be the light of the world by taking a cup of water to someone who's thirsty. You can be the light of the world by offering forgiveness to those who the world has condemned. There's lots of ways to be the light of the world. The inner light is the illumination of spirit, and it's already in us. Everybody say it's already in us.
It's already in us.
Yeah. Now, do we do inner work to uncover it? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So this scripture, the sun shall no longer be your light by day, nor for brightness shall the moon give light to you by night. But the Lord, that's your I am consciousness, will be your everlasting light, and your God, intelligence, consciousness, and understanding will be your glory. Now, what I did was I took Isaiah's words, and then I put the metaphysical interpretation into the parentheses. So when we taught the sun shall no longer be your light by day, I need some light. Somebody turn on the light. The sun's out. The sun's not here right now. We need some light. Turn it on. No, the sun shall no longer be your light by day, nor for brightness shall the moon give you light by night. Your light is going to be that I am spiritual consciousness, the everlasting light that all the great spiritual masters talk about. That inner intelligence, consciousness, and understanding will be your glory. That's what you're going to express out of. Now, let's take a deep breath. It is an audacious idea to consider that this was written about you and me. It's an audacious idea to consider that thousands of years ago, this prophet wrote some words that apply to you and me right here, right now, today. And it's an audacious idea to consider at all that we have anything within us even remotely similar to being the light of the world. Because our world tries to convince us that we're less than the beautiful light. Everybody take a deep breath. So in order to see in the dark, we have to acknowledge the light in the darkest places. In order to see in the dark, and in order to be the light of the world, we have to acknowledge the light is stirring even in the darkest moments. Our darkest moments, when a beloved passes from the body. When we have a loss that feels so huge that our entire identity is shaken. When our sorrows are upon us, or we feel the sorrows of the world and we are shaken. In the darkest moments, to know the astonishing light of our own being. So we have to give ourselves over to this audacious idea that light is stirring even in the darkest times. How many of us feel like our world will be okay again if we can just get this thing right? You know, my world will be okay again if I can just get this one thing taken care of. When we're told by every great spiritual master, the light is stirring within every event of darkness. It's an audacious idea to even ponder that that could be true. You don't have to believe it, but I invite you to ponder that it could be true. And if it is true, how does that change the way we feel about the world and our part in it? Some of you have heard this story where David and I were on one of our infamous canoe trips. Pam, I think you might have been on this one with us. And we had this great idea to hike away from our camping site, up the mountain, and then over the mountain and down into a beautiful valley. It was a wonderful idea when we started out at 11 a.m. And we found an old medicine wheel, and we attended to it and put the stones and the rocks back together, and we had ceremony. And we stayed into the night, and it was a moonless night, and so we could see the Milky Way. You've been to the desert. Colorado. You're from Colorado. Where were we on that one? Gunnison River. So we were, I mean, the Milky Way was just hanging in the sky, and the shooting stars, and we were doing ceremony. It was fabulous. And then one of us, I think it was me, the double checker among us, I said, who among us brought a flashlight at 11 a.m. this morning when we weren't intending to stay out this long? No one had a flashlight. So we had to hike back up over the little mountain and back down to our camping site. That's when we found out it's possible to see in the dark. There is light emanating from everything. We were guided by starlight. We were guided by the light in the rocks. I tell you, there's light that you can't even imagine in the darkest places in the desert. You don't know until you go there to experience it. That's the way I feel about you and me. Sometimes we feel like we've hit on the darkest place in ourselves, or we feel like our world has hit on the darkest place. And we convince ourselves that we don't know how to get out of this mess, and we convince ourselves that we don't know how to see our way through. And yet, you and I know how to see in the darkest places. I promise you. We know how to see in the darkest places. Look at this guy. Does this not amaze and just, does this not even open your heart and mind to the miraculous beings that we are?
He sees better than a lot of people who see.
Yeah, he sees better than a lot of people who see. He seized on this ability when he was still pre-verbal. He was 13 months old. And he seized on something that the dolphins know about. And he's teaching other people who've been blind their entire lives how to do this. If you and I haven't yet seized on this idea of how remarkable we are and how incredible we are, this helps me to remember. Just this one little thing helps me to remember. If he can send out clicking sounds to become familiar with the environment around him, then I can certainly send out spiritual invitation to be open in my heart and mind, to be available to the guidance of this one presence. Come on. We're all going to be walking around clicking. Right? Clicking spiritually. You know, finding my way, the guidance, finding my way. I used to work years ago in Lockheed in Marietta, Georgia, and I worked with a non-sighted individual. This young man would come into my office and he would, can I touch your face? He would come in, and instead of saying, how are you doing? He, with my permission, he would come and he would say, good morning. And he would do this to my face. He could feel in my face where I was emotionally. So we find our way, we maneuver our way through these dark places. So what is your dark unknown? Take a deep breath. Oh, what is the dark unknown? For Daniel Kish, it was making his way through the world without being able to see. Riding a bike? Are you kidding me? What is our dark unknown? We human beings have many dark unknowns, and we convince ourselves that we cannot maneuver our way through. Just this one idea of this small, compared to some church community, launching itself into this new land, and it's kind of a dark unknown. You know, we don't know all the different ways that the dots are going to connect. But we're fearlessly going forward as if Spirit is stirring in all the details. As a community, we are audaciously moving forward into this, what I call a divine calling, without knowing all the ways it's going to come together. It's not like the $5 million endowment has arrived yet. And yet we keep moving forward because we're being drawn, you know, this universal allurement into this calling. It's an audacious idea, and many of us are 70 plus. It's an audacious thing that's happening. Everybody say it's an audacious thing that's happening. So, be the light. The light at the end of the tunnel is not an illusion. The tunnel is the illusion. Think we're going to have to move through a tunnel to get to the light? Are you kidding me? We're already in the light. We've convinced ourselves it's not present. So, we'll end with the Upanishads. We'll start at the beginning, and by the time we get to the end, it'll be a decade from now. The Upanishads, the light that shines above the heavens and above this world, the light that shines in the highest world, beyond which there are no others, that is the light that shines in the hearts of humankind. You see the images that come from the Hubble telescope, and we look at these divine images of the universe and universes we didn't even know were there, you know, a decade ago, and we look at these images and, oh, I'm a part of something so profoundly mysterious, unexplainable, and divine. How can this be? We used to think that we were, you know, 9 planets circling the sun in a little galaxy with a universe.
Margaret, they discovered that there are as many galaxies in space as there are grains of sand on all the beaches of the world.
Think of that genealogy project, Lisa. What are we akin to? What are we a part of? What is stirring around in us that's also stirring around in millions of other galaxies and universes? We are an audacious species because we can observe and see what's happening within us and around us, and we can have a part to self-reflect and self-correct. How many of you are pilots, airplane pilots? We have, so, has anybody ever let you take the wheel? Okay, so you know what it feels like. I used to have a friend who had a 48 Piper, so that's where, there's 2 seats, one in front of the other. And it's a stick, not I use my professional terms. And every time I would move the stick, because he would let me fly it once we got up in the air. Wouldn't let me take off and land, I don't know why. But I could feel the wind, feel the movement of the wind, and the tiniest little correction would correct the entire plane. It was amazing. You didn't have to, it was just a tiny little correction each time, left, right, forward, back. That's what we do. We self-reflect so we can self-correct. We know when we are off the target. We know when we're off center. And this idea of being the light of the world, we say it every Sunday and it kind of becomes rote. But the more I am in this work, the more I realize that if I can get this one thing, everything else is going to take care of itself. Otherwise, I'm talking myself into my diminished capacities rather than my enormous, audacious capacities. And I wonder if we're all doing that. I don't want to argue for my diminished capacities. I want to take a stand for my audacious capacities, especially in the time that we're living in. So, next week we're going to talk about what does it mean to be the light of the world. Last 2 Sundays ago we did the burning bowl. That's where we let go of ideas, old beliefs, things that keep us from expressing our light. And last Sunday we had the white stone. And by the way, if you weren't here for the white stone ceremony, these are the ones that are left for those of you who weren't here to get a white stone. Meaning the naming of our spiritual qualities. What is the naming of who we really are? And I hope you're reflecting on that. We started that process this morning in the Sunday morning circle. To even give ourselves permission to ponder this idea. This audacious idea that we are divine and that we are the light of the world and that we know how to see in the dark and we know how to move through these days that feel hard. So let's take a deep breath. Our band comes back up and Darlene comes back up. Let's just take a deep breath. There's only one person that can give you the permission to consider this audacious idea that you are divine and that you're the light of the world. It may be you're still in the closet on this, but you're being invited out of the closet and to know this incredible idea is true for you. I invite you to be truly, divinely audacious along with myself. To know we're the light of the world, not just consider it's a nice idea. So give thanks for remembering this. We say, so it is, and so we let it be. Namaste. Turn to somebody and say, you are audacious. You are audacious.